All right. So yesterday we found out about the mass shooting that happened at Robb Elementary School, right in Texas. It's a terrible thing. I'm a dad. I got two young boys myself. Got a 6-year-old in first grade, just about finished, fixing to go into second grade. And I tell you, it's one of the most terrible things that a mass shooting would happen at an elementary school. An elementary school ought to have enough um, security. It should have more security than a high school. I can just tell you right now, there ought to at least be two security guards with weapons. And I'm totally not against having an AR type weapon. Because see, if it's AR type weapons that are coming in those schools and shooting the kids, then there should be some officers in there with AR type weapons ready to stop that before it ever happens. You know. Now, from what I've heard so far, that there may not have been any security at this rural type school. You know, I don't care if it is a rural type school. If it has the word elementary on that school, it should have security guards. It should have two well armed security guards ready to stop that from happening. There should that kid, that 18-year-old kid, should have never got within 100 yards of that school without those officers ready to do whatever means necessary to stop it from happening. Now, I'm a born again Christian, and I can tell you a little more from God's perspective of what really happened. Unclean spirits are real. I mean, devils are real. I mean, a devil of murder. They have names too. An unclean spirit of murder can get in any age person, any age. Just having to be in this 18-year-old, and somehow that 18-year-old let that decided to go along with that unclean spirit, and unclean spirit can hop in any person if he lets them. If a person lets them, they're pretty tricky. So somehow that unclean spirit of murder got inside that 18-year-old, at some point. And first he whacked his grandmother. First he took out his grandmother. That unclean spirit was going to take out whatever he could, whoever he could. It just so happens, hey, they're pretty smart. Unclean spirit is pretty smart. Let's go take out an elementary school where you have a bunch of helpless kids, and you may probably have a bunch of helpless teachers, because a lot of teachers aren't packing. They don't have any weapons. Teachers should be able to have some weapons on them as well. They're grown adults. As long as they pass their checks, as long as they have sanity in their mind, they ought to be able to have some weapons on them to protect their kids. I bet those teachers hopped in front of those kids to take the bullets so that they wouldn't perish. Bullets don't care could care less. Unclean spirits are real, and that unclean spirit murder was inside that 18-year-old and doing its thing. It was going to whack out as many people as it could. And just so happens, hey, it took, and usually that's what happens, is that the person takes their own life. Unclean spirit will finish off the very person that it's inside and have him or her kill itself. They're real. Jesus had to cast them out of people. There's a story in the Bible um, where there was a father. He walked up to Jesus and he said, "Hey, can your disciples couldn't cast out that unclean spirit out of my son? And my son, he throws himself in the fire a lot. See, that unclean spirit was trying to kill his boy and trying to get him to throw himself in the fires, burn himself. It was out to take out his life." And so that concerned father, walked over to Jesus and said, "Hey, your disciples can't do anything, and can you do something?" And Jesus looked at him and says that without faith, it's impossible. You got to have faith. His disciples didn't have enough faith to cast out that unclean spirit. So he cast out that unclean spirit out of that boy, and he was in his right mind, the Bible says afterward. See, that 18-year-old wasn't in his right mind. He wasn't. He be it, hey, it could have been from his child upbringing, could have a terrible upbringing, could have been abused, whatever it was, but something opened up the door for that unclean spirit of murder to get inside that kid. And it just so happens that elementary school was probably the nearest building, and knowing it's full of kids, didn't see any officer, no cars, right, no police presence. Easy pickings for an unclean spirit. Just so happens it was in an 18-year-old boy. I hated that it happened. But it could happen anywhere. It could happen anywhere. There needs to be a police presence, and there should have been a priest presence. A priest, a born again Christian who could have cast out that unclean spirit of murder out of that kid. You know, There should have been a priest presence at this elementary school to cast out that unclean spirit. But hey, it's gone now. It left that boy. As soon as that 18-year-old died, it left that boy, and it's seeking somebody else to get inside. So hey, they're real. Unclean spirits are real. It's one thing Jesus came to get rid of, to cast them out of people. The legion that was mentioned in the Bible, it was with one man who was shackled outside of a town. He had 1,000 unclean spirits inside him, and they all got sent into the pigs, the Bible said. So they're real. So hey, just make sure you're right with God. We need higher security, more security at these schools, and give these police officers some AR weapons so that they can defend these kids. Peace.